Cyborg number 5, written by Morgan Hampton, with art by Tom Rainey, Travis Mercer, Michael Attea, and Rob Lee. And in this penultimate issue of Cyborg, telling you, I don't hate this. I don't think the art's very good, and a lot of it's padded out with Titan stuff. But when we get to the end with Cyborg versus the android version of Marcus, who owns Solus, who calls himself Solus, we start getting what this book should have been the whole time, but it is padded to the nth degree with this whole idea that, hey, we got all these supervillains out that are wrecking the place. Better go boom tube to the Titans and tell everybody that the Titans are more than friends, we're family, and Dick Grayson has to tell us how much he loves us. Like, I'm telling you, the deeper meaning of this book, I explained this, I think, many times when we talked about this, and I even brought it up during the Patreon Spotlight this week. There are a lot of good ideas in this book, a lot of cool things that could be happening, but the execution is just done terribly. Like, it just makes Cyborg look terrible throughout this whole thing, because every time I try to tell everybody there is something to this book, there's just a heap of shit that's weighing it down where I can't say, but it's a good book, because it's not a good book. It just has some cool ideas that could go somewhere, but they're not doing it.
And I don't know how things go. I don't know how things come about. The idea, Morgan Hampton is, a newer writer. I ended up being somebody who was on like a podcast and a website, kind of reviewing things, ends up being a writer. And,
all right.
I
got a chance.
Yeah, you have a bit of a chance. But again, and you said Morgan Hampton, not Morgan Freeman, who said this, right?
Stop it.
I won't do it. But when you get to it, this feels like a series that continuously had been fiddled with. You know, the idea that you had this idea at the beginning, then it kind of changed. This issue almost feels like, it's the penultimate issue. We're going to get out. Fuck the story. Let's just end up doing something so people will get some wow moments, and maybe they'll end up remembering that or whatnot. Some of the things that happen in this book, they're cool enough, but they don't fit the story. Really, the whole play of this, in my mind, was to get to Detroit, really center on the idea of what Cyborg is by himself. And I think that at this point, again, they have thrown in the towel. They threw the towel in to say he's only good with teams, so we'll do that. But even then,
I just don't know why Cyborg. Is it just because of this book that he's not a part of the Titans right now?
I don't know. Because I thought it's weird because even when he goes, he seems, he's there. The Titans are there, but they even do their own thing. It's until they end up, joining up. But it's weird. It's almost like the idea that you go with this play and you paint yourself into a corner of, there's too many things we want Cyborg. He could have just went and fought, this whole play by the end. But you get the Titans in. That's supposed to be the wild deal. And you get them on the cover with the ballroom blitz, the battle blitz.
Yeah.
And even then you're like, you're going to introduce like, oh my God. And I'm going down the line too. And I'm like, oh, you love teams. You love the revenge squads. You like these deals. I'm like,
this is nothing. This is just assholes who came together at one moment.
That's the problem is when it starts, I'm excited again. I forgot all the thing. Gizmo. Yeah. Get a Mammoth. All right.
Mammoth. Yeah.
Seymour. Oh
yeah.
Atlas. Billy
Numerous.
Billy Numerous. And Jinx.
It's like a Wish.com Jamie Madrox, Billy Numerous.
Yeah. Wish.com. What a dick. The idea there is padding in this, like you said, kind of like.
But yeah, and Jinx. I almost forgot that Jinx was a part of this team too. But like, they're not doing anything. They're just in the background for the Titans to fight to fill up some of the pages here until Cyborg makes his way to fight Solus.
And even there, this Dan Hampton's trying to get this idea of, or Morgan Hampton. I said Dan Hampton. Morgan Hampton's trying to get this idea of, oh man, looks like we're going to go at it again, Atlas. Oh man, Johnny Numerous, whatever the fuck his name is. Like,
Billy Numerous.
There's more padding than probably what Cameron's mom used to do when she was on the corner.
Stop it.
Eric, is what happens. But
what does that mean?
She was padded up. She's got to, look good. She's on the corner. She's a hooker, Eric, is what I was saying. That's why she got rid of him.
Up.
Yeah, she padded up her bra. Put the things in there to pad the bra.
Okay.
Is that... Now you're making me explain things. It's not as good now.
That just makes you look like a jerk.
There I am. I mean, I'm 0.0. That's what I am. But yeah, so you have this where you also had the play of the girl online. She's just there in this weird, like, meta way of, holy shit, look what's going on. And then you have, like, nothing with that.
Where's Cyborg?
Everything seems to be just, oh, get this. Your story was complete bullshit and was going nowhere. So let's just fucking have some fun, which, okay. But like you said, by the end, you even convolute your own story. And where you said do these AIs and does this, the consciousness that's downloaded, uploaded, whatever, do they have a soul?
The copies.
I just want a story, Eric. They could have a soul, whatever. But in the end,
I'm telling you, this thing is, I actually like this. The idea where we had this database of all these people whose memories and minds were copied in this thing to be this processing power for anybody. They're essentially downloading themselves to be slaves with the guise of you can live forever.
Slaves,
and stuff,
but they were originally downloaded because they wanted to make a Siri that would know you they even mentioned that. Then it went a little wrong.
But the people didn't realize this, and if they did, they didn't care. And now we have these consciousness out and about in AI, not AI, but android bodies. The best one for Marcus's consciousness, and he wants revenge because even though he is the same person as this Marcus, he is no longer the same person based on what he's gone through in the digital database. So now he just wants to, I didn't sign up for this. You might have did it because we're the same person. But once in there, this is not what I wanted. I need to kill you so I can be autonomous and free and not just a slave to you. And along with everybody else who just becomes a slave for these things because they become their own separate faction group. These people who just want to be free and not be worked to death as these memories of these living people.
It wasn't here's the thing. And what I had a problem with from the get-go, it really did feel like the South Park type deal where, oh my God, you got the iTunes and you didn't read the agreement. Yet that seems like what they ended up gathering information that people didn't agree to, or they didn't understand that they were agreeing. They ended up getting that deal.
Or they were assholes and didn't care because it didn't affect them. It was a copy of their mind.
Well, again, it was just the idea of getting, hey, we're going to scan what you like and go. And so when you get online.
It's like making a clone of yourself and making him do all your work.
But at that, it didn't, the work.
He's going to kill you.
That was the work originally, though, wasn't we're also then going to give them robot bodies and they're going to attack. This was going to be like a Siri. This was good. So you're really centering on the idea that if I end up where somebody scans my brain to see what I like and don't like and then give me suggestions when I go online, am I going to have to worry that Google helper is going to fucking kill me? Maybe. But it ends up being goofy because then all that information, it ended up being nefarious just because it was, and then it gets bodies and now they're fucking attacking everybody. It's silly in my mind.
I like the idea of having these two Marcuses with two different, personalities based on what they've experienced so far. You have the power-hungry Marcus of the real world with flesh and blood, who is doing all this thing for, this fame and for the greater good is what he wants. But his ultimate goal is to the end. You have this version of him that was copied and pretty much held captive inside this and forced to do all this stuff. Now that he's out, he wants to kill his puppet master who put him through this, and he will become this big badass kind of character. And I can honestly, I can understand where he's coming from.
When you're explaining it in a way that makes more sense, but in this, it's not like the downloaded memories and what I like. It's more preferences and quirks. All of a sudden, my guy, he's into leather a bit, Eric. I don't know why. I know. It basically is you're saying. So it's not like they're in the ether shoveling snow. They're not there working a 9 to 5. What the work is that when I end up kind of going online and I'm like, oh, I like Taylor Swift, it's going to suggest that maybe you'll like New Jeans as well. Or maybe when I buy something, it'll end up saying, why don't you buy this? These are things we have. That was what it seemed. Then it got twisted around.
Also think about the idea when you're not asking about, K-pop freaking recommendations. It's stuck in a digital cell the entire rest of the time going insane.
That you're saying that because that's how that, but that's silly. And is it going insane because it has a better life than me?
It's a digitized mind.
It's there in there liking everything and knowing, and it's, suggesting shit. And maybe it gets mad at me because I don't want to then go and listen to Blackpink.
It's the same thing, the idea, I'm telling you, just go with the idea this is a digital clone.
But
it's a clone right there. And if as soon as I have a clone, if I see it, I have to kill it because I know myself and it's going to try to kill me.
This was at first going to be, it looked like the social commentary of, and we're jumping to these things like they were in the story of, okay, it's just going to be the best helper. It's going to be able to suggest things. When you go online, it's going to do that. Maybe
you don't know the consequences of your actions.
Maybe on every Tuesday, I usually buy a loaf of bread. It's going to remind me that it's Tuesday. It'll buy the loaf of bread.
Immortality.
Well, that's where it kind of then twists to, because then, on top of all that, you end up where this guy, he's sick and he's going to die. So he thinks then Marcus says, ooh, but this will be cool too, because then I can live forever, but kind of. You have that. And also,
and even himself
Silas,
that he did back up on his server, he does not want to live his life in this robotic body either. This is no living for him. He just wants to lash out at his freaking, like I said, his puppet master, the person that did this to him.
Yeah, it did it to him.
And Cyborg now has to stop him.
I'm sitting there.
Even though he believes in what this guy is saying, but he doesn't want him to kill him, himself.
And you kind of get away from the idea of Silas in this. I'm sure it comes back next issue, and it'll be the idea, is this the last, like, if I turn this off, do I lose my dad? Whatever it might be. But I'm telling you, the story itself and the way it progressed is so goddamn silly. Like I said, to me, it comes down to we got information from people without them knowing, and now we're going to get them to suggest things. But oh no, all these things got sentient life within the machine, and then they came out. Now they made, but it's just too much of jumps for me. It's too much of a jumps because I'm sitting there. I can type in right now. I mean, the idea. I'll put Google and I'll put Eric S. and maybe, oh my God, it suggested Eric Shea. That means I'm going to, like, you have these things are just things that it's trying to play with the fear of big companies collecting your personal info and what can come about. But I think there's so much of a jump in logic about what's really going on in here to then make it a comic booky story where it should have kind of started a little bit different. Maybe you could have played the idea that this guy, Marcus, was like dealing in some other, not just collecting people's, just too much for me. Too much of a jump for me to sit there and say, oh my God, I feel bad for these online avatars that were supposed to be helpers. I don't know.
Imprisoned minds.
Yeah, are they? Like, again, that's the play. But then, is it imprisoned minds if I fill out a survey? Now, again, I'm willingly doing it.
If you put on a freaking Cerebro helmet and digitally copy your every bit of yourself and the thing still lives on
but
digitally. But
at the beginning, it wasn't the idea of... It
was that, because that's why Silas agreed to do it.
But it was your preferences and your things. The way that they said it was they're like, okay, we're going to get all of your hopes and dreams and things like that. That I wouldn't care. Make $1 million of me.
Exactly. And that's why Marcus is double. Silas is going to kill him because he didn't care.
Again, I'm saying I was thinking more of like, I'm the digital guy. Like, fuck it. Like, what are they doing anyway? Like, they're in a robot body. Like,
I'm just saying.
Is he mad because they're not giving him enough motor oil? Like, is shitting out nuts and bolts?
A version of you throws you in a cell and says, ha, fucko, you're going to work for me now. You're going to be fine with that.
But I'm a human getting thrown in a cell. This is a digitized
But they're human as well,
no,
as far as they're concerned, because your thoughts and your memories are all that make you up.
Yeah, it's not. It's your experiences. It's the everyday thing. And again...
And they've experienced everything that you have to that point. And now they're in a cell.
I'm trying to do these AIs for some of these songs. I mean, now I'm afraid that if I do the Sammy Hagar AI... he won't be able to drive 55 and he'll get pissed off and this AI is going to come and kill me. Just does not make sense in the whole roundabout way of, oh my God, you did this to me. I'm like, nobody said. Also, where are the people in the rest? We haven't seen anybody like step up and really get mad. It's just these people fighting and people are like, oh man, it's just such a stupid story in my mind to start with. It's convoluted. Never made sense.
I think it's a very interesting story. I just don't think it's being handled properly the way it's being executed. Because I'm telling you, once we get to the end, I'm all about what we got here with even the idea of Silas being an AI. Because even after he died, because he's still out there in this whole thing, releasing all of those captive, I say AI, but like digitized people essentially, because they're still who they were. And even this new villain of Silas, I'm like, this seems really cool. But when you pad it all out with these villains and the Titans have to come in and save the day, just telling each other. Telling everybody how much they love each other. I'm like, really?
This is the book that I was talking about earlier, that when we mentioned, what we're doing this week. And I said, two people actually now have said they didn't even know that there was a book. Now I get upset because we've talked about every issue. So you might have heard us talk. But even so, when you're doing this, I've seen the story 1 million times. And I think this is so poorly done that I just skip this one and I'll go to all the other times that I've seen this story when Will Smith is fighting the robots and all. It always is the same.
It's classic sci-fi trope.
Yeah, it's just the same thing, and it's nothing that is any bit more unique. You're just trying to throw in that social kind of thing. But again, it's just South Park where you get the iTunes and don't read the fine print, sign off. Now you're a human centipede. Why they even greenlit this? Because this is bullshit. But what would you give it overall?
I'm going to give this a 5.8 out of 10, and that's because I just really enjoy the idea of the story. When we actually get to see it, materialize in the book, I don't like the art in this book.
Oh, I hate the art.
I don't like the inclusion of the Teen Titans in this because it just pads out the story. But the actual story, and I feel like we only get it in trips and drabs of this series, it's really interesting to me. I like to see it when it pops up. It's just not enough.
I'm reading this issue, and it's bullshit. Like, yeah, your idea, but maybe I get even more mad when I think something has a good idea, but then you fuck it up this bad. 3.5.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.